All right, today's lesson is about writing addition and subtraction expressions. All right, there are some examples, there are several examples for this lesson, and to just kind of shorten my video, I am going to start with example 5. So we're going to go over examples 1 through 4 in class tomorrow, so don't worry that you're not going to know those. We'll go over them together. They just seemed a little bit more hands-on or more simpler that we can do in class, so that we can just use our video here for a little more complex lessons and examples. Okay, this is example 5, and we're going to kind of do it right here on the page. Okay, so it says, how can we write an expression to show 3 less than a number? In today's lesson, we're going to really need to mark the keywords. So we're going to show 3, I'm going to circle the numbers that I know, less than, underlining that, and it means subtract a number. A number is another number, but we don't know what the number is. And so if we don't know the number, we're going to replace it with a variable. Since it's a number, let's call it n. N is a very commonly used variable. Now this one is a very tricky one. When I look at this, most times when I do this, I have 3 minus n. There it is. I'm done. But there's a key word in here that's going to throw us all off. It is going to put a kink in things. That word is than. And I know that doesn't look like a very, tricky word, but it really is. So let's start by drawing a model to see what it looks like. So we're going to see where we start. Do we start with 3? Or do we start with a number? Well, in this case, it's less than a number. So that means the number is larger than the 3. All right, so that means that we are starting with a number. So let's draw, let's do like a little tape diagram here. And let's say this is n. From here to here is n. All right, now 3 less than this, it's going to be smaller because it's less than, so we're going to take off 3 units. So let's say 3 is, I don't know, here. We don't know exactly where it is, but we'll say it's there. That's 3. Okay, so let's kind of shade that in. We're going to take that away because it's less than n. So that part's taken away. We take it off, and here's our answer. Whatever the number n is, we can replace it and find an answer. Now, question is, are we taking away from 3 or are we taking away from the unknown number? Because of the word than, we have to flip these. So this is going to be n minus 3. And I know this is tricky, but you kind of just have to understand the wording. It's 3 less than a number. Let's say the number is 5. 3 less than 5, if I'm going to go less than 5, I'm going to start at 5, or I'm going to take away 3. So I'm starting with my unknown number, which we said was 5, minus 3. It's a little bit tricky. That word than, if that word than is in there in a less than problem, you're always going to flip-flop them. Okay, always start with the second one. That one's a little trickier than it seems. It seems like it should be fairly easy, but it is pretty tricky. Okay, let's look at example 6. All right, for example 6, it says, how would we write an expression to show the number c? Now here we go. We're going to start marking, and this is a number, so we're going to circle it. It's just our own little key here. How would we write an expression to show the number c being subtracted? That means taken away from. Subtracted from, that's important because that's kind of like less than. Oh my, the sum. Sum means odd, right? That's the answer to an addition problem. The sum of a, which is a number, right? It's a variable to represent a number, and b. So if we have the sum, let's start there. The sum of a and b means a plus b. We can't just plus ab. We have to have a plus b. Okay, whew. This is a very wordy, tricky one. Good thing I chose these as my examples. It says start by writing an expression for the sum of A and B. Okay, that's where we're going to start at the end. Oops. We're going to start at the end, and to do that, we know is because subtracted from is just like less than, so we're going to flip-flop them. So we have this, and we have this. So let's start with this. So we're going to write an expression for the sum of A and B. And the sum means add, just like we have here. If we mark this in your problem, it's going to help you very easily see what you should do. All right, now show C being subtracted from the sum. Okay, so here's the sum. We're going to subtract C from A plus B. Whew, these tricky wordings, I tell you. This from right here is a very important word, just as than was important up there. Okay, so that means we're going to flip-flop these. Now, I know these are going to be added first because there's a sum of them first. Then C is being subtracted. Whew, talk about tricky. Let's look at another one. They seem very simple, but really they can be pretty tricky. All right, let's take a look. I'll go down a little bit, save some room here. There we go. There it is. Okay. Write an expression to show the number C. Well, we have a number C. Okay, so we're going to circle it. Minus means subtract. So I'm going to put that above it so I don't forget. C minus the sum. Sum means addition again. Of A and B. This looks very much like the last example. Let's take a look. Okay, what's the difference here? This says C being subtracted from the sum, and this says C minus the sum. I got an idea. I think we're going to start with C. Oops. Okay, we're going to start with C. So let's do C minus, just like it says, C minus the sum. We can't do C minus add. So we're going to put the sum, just like we did up here, the sum of A and B. So A plus B. C minus A plus B. Now, this one has a problem. This one has a problem. Now, let's take a look at our order of operations. Let's see. Order of operations. Oh, what was that saying? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's how I learned it. Okay, so P was parentheses. Well, we don't have any. So we move on down. We're going to get here, just addition and subtraction. So let's substitute numbers, shall we? Let's try C. Let's make C be 10. Start with a larger number. I'm going to use a different color here, actually, so that we can see. We're just trying this here. 10 minus A. Let's make A be 6. And let's have B be 2. Shall we? Now, if we look at this, we're going to subtract a sum. We're not subtracting A. We're subtracting a sum. Okay, now if we look at the problem that we just created in pink, I have 10 going left to right, addition and subtraction, right? So I come up here, and the first thing I come to is 10 minus 6. 10 minus 6 is 4, and I'll bring down plus 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. Okay, now we're subtracting the sum. So what our problem should look like, we're going to subtract the sum. So we have to do the sum first. Let's see if that's any different. So the parentheses tells us we're going to do that first because up here we do parentheses first. That's what it says, right? So if we put the parentheses around A plus B, that's going to say this is the sum, and you're going to take the sum away from C. This says C subtract A plus B, and we want C subtract the sum. So let's see, let's plug in the same numbers just to see. 10, 6, and 2. All right, we're putting down all of our symbols. Okay, so we have to start with parentheses according to my order of operations. So 6 plus 2 is 8, subtracted from 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. That's quite a difference there. We have different answers. Now, this tells me that it does matter how we write it. Okay, the next question asks, why are the parentheses necessary in this example and not in the others? Well, let's look at this one. In this one, it's not necessary. We could do it, absolutely, we could. But if we're going to do left to right, we're going to do addition and subtraction. So we're going to come to addition problem first. So we're going to have a plus b first, and that's going to be the sum that we want first anyway. And then subtract c. So if we put the parentheses, it won't change anything. It won't necessarily be incorrect, but it's not necessary because we do left to right. Down here, it is necessary because we want to subtract the sum, not just subtracting a. And the last part says to replace the variables with numbers, which we did, to see if it's the same. And we realize that it's not. So it is very necessary to have these when you have the sum that you're subtracting, not just one letter. Very tricky, very tricky. Again, we will do some more examples in class tomorrow, but if you have questions on these types of problems, these 3 examples that we went over here, you know the drill. Please put them in your ISN.